Right, so I've definitely been watching too much of Dillian White versus Alexander Povetkin, or I've been watching the Euros or the World Cup qualifiers. But what I've decided to do is a knockout-style tournament for Moyes' top striker targets. The four I've identified are kicking in and around some of the rumour mill and what we know. So I've gone for Ivan Toney, Adam Armstrong, Youssef En-Nesyri, and Tammy Abraham. And I've tried to split them up a little bit to not get those players to compete with each other too early on. The stats are very difficult for players like Toney and Armstrong, given the fact they are in the Championship. But there is enough to make a comparison. And what I've tried to do is compare it against three key attributes that I would like to see of a West Ham striker coming in. It's to do with finishing, creativity, and ball retention. There's no surprises there in terms of ball retention. I'm sick and tired every single week of us losing the ball in transition. So I want a striker that's able to not only create and work with players around him and show awareness, but I want him to be able to hold up the ball and take pressure off our defence. Because I do think going forward, that's going to be a massive attribute. This side of the draw is Ivan Toney versus Adam Armstrong, two players that have done so well in the Championship this season. Ivan Toney, 28 goals, 9 assists, is disgusting in terms of stats, and it's only March, so he's only going to improve. Adam Armstrong, on the other hand, 19 goals, 3 assists. Again, brilliant stats and a fantastic return in the Blackburn Rovers side. I know he's got Harvey Elliott there, but certainly impressive given the players around him. So what I'll do is I'll go through each of the categories and talk to you a little bit about my rationale behind who I think will win this round. I'm going to talk a little bit about finishing. To split that one up is a bit of a tricky one. Clearly, the goals are there. But let's talk a little bit about shots on target. Ivan Toney has 41%, Adam Armstrong has 42% on target. So there's nothing really to split the two between each other. So when you break down that, we're looking for a striker that's got to be clinical. So they've both proven that they can get shots on target, and that's reflective of the amount of goals that they've scored. But the amount of shots they are actually taking, Armstrong's taking 4.8, and Ivan Toney's around 3. So Armstrong's the guy that's been a little bit more proactive in trying to get shots on goal, trying to create things, and that could possibly lead to goal creating actions or shot creating actions. So that's something to bear in mind in terms of the overall gist of the player and in terms of them two competing with each other. But the most crucial stat in all of this is how many goals they're getting per the shots on target per 90. And Ivan Toney is getting 0.3 goals per shot on target, and Adam Armstrong's only getting 0.23. Now, when you look at the goals, respective of each other, 10 goals in, it's not really too much to say, but the fact that Ivan Toney is scoring more times when he's getting those shots on target and he's got the same shot accuracy as Adam Armstrong, really and truthfully, shows you that he's more clinical. That's exactly what West Ham need. We need a striker that's going to get those chances and take them. It's not a disrespect to Mikel Antonio, because the work he does is incredibly unique as an almost a number 9 at times, converted winger. But we do need someone that when we do get a chance on target and we are in a game where we are under the cosh, someone has got to take that chance. And Ivan Toney, out of him and Armstrong, should be the man to do that based on the stats. The other side I've spoken about is creativity. And what I mean by that is awareness around each other, the ability to create chances, it sort of bring other players into play, which Mikel Antonio does very well for West Ham. And we've seen that this season when he's played, either in the dynamic that he gives to the side when he's up front, or in actually creating assists or creating shot creating actions. So I've tried to look through key passes per game. And Ivan Toney's got 1.1 per game, which is an incredibly high stat for a striker, a number 9 that I think people are looking more as a target man. And that surpasses Armstrong in terms of the 0.9 key passes per game. But in truth, they are very close to each other. So both players are looking to bring other players into play. And then you've got to sort of dwell down into the minutiae of that. What are they doing actively when they're on the ball? And what was interesting about Armstrong was his dribbling ability. 1.2 dribbles per 90 compared to Toney's 0.4, which shows you how much the proactiveness of him when he's on the ball carries that he could show, and the data that I can't quite get hold of. So we're just going to have to assume from the clips that I've seen of him that he is capable of carrying that ball and being a bit more dynamic, which could be harsh on Toney, because I think Toney's awareness and his general ball control is fantastic, and we'll get into that later in the video. And also the fact that Armstrong's better for crosses, he's better for through balls as well. Sorry, he's not better for through balls. Toney's better for through balls, just. So Armstrong's a player that's going to be a little bit more dynamic in where he picks up positions in terms of ball carries, can allow West Ham to introduce those attacking midfielders. If we've got Lingard in next season as well, that could be a really, really important link up. So that is important to remember. And crosses as well is very unique from a striker to have, and it is just above Toney in that sense. But from what I've seen in terms of pass completion as well, Armstrong's, for me, more of, albeit as a striker, feels like a bit of a number 10 and has got tendencies possibly to even play in a deeper midfield position. But the idea that Toney's got better through ball shows that he's probably a little bit more effective when he's getting the ball. And it's not to say that he's more dynamic, but when he's getting it, he's setting up play. He's aware of players around him. But what I'd have to say, based on the pass succession as well, the fact that Armstrong is got 76% pass succession compared to Toney's 66, that Armstrong would have to be the better for general creativity and dynamism. I don't know, I've said dynamism about 10 times there, but that's just the point I'm getting at. And you feel that maybe he's suited for West Ham in transition a little bit more through some of those stats. And then we get to the last thing, and probably the biggest thing for me, ball retention. How many times are these players dispossessed? How do they effectively keep the ball and recycle it for West Ham? Toney's sort of dispossession stats are incredibly low, 0.7 per game compared to Armstrong's 1.2. And I think that might be one of the highest in terms of Championship strikers. That is really crucial for West Ham, keeping the ball, having a good touch, being very economical with possession. Again, so whilst Armstrong's offering that ability to go to either wing and to carry the ball, Toney's actually keeping it better, which is so important. Here's another stat as well. 2.5 times a game, Toney draws a foul, and Armstrong only draws it 0.8. And the fact that Armstrong is a player that's going to go and be a little bit more varied in terms of his positioning shows you that when Toney is getting the ball, he's drawing the fouls, he's being very effective with it, he's being clinical with it. And that's the type of thing that West Ham need. And the side that's not so heavily possession-based, we need a player that can either A, keep the ball, or B, draw the foul and get a set piece that we know that we're fantastic from. And finally, in terms of stats, and possibly the biggest feather in the cap for Toney, is the amount of aerial duels that he wins a game. 3.3, and Armstrong only wins 0.4, which again is a lot to do with height, if we're honest. You know, Armstrong's only 5'8", and I don't really, and that's why I've put a load of criteria in here, because I didn't want that to detract from, you know, Armstrong's overall ability. But Toney, in terms of his decent touch, not being possessed, drawing fouls, winning aerial duels, probably more so than Mikel Antonio per 90, shows you that he's an effective asset, and he can actually add things to West Ham's game in terms of keeping the ball, winning the ball in the air, and getting that mixture of him setting up play and keeping the pressure off West Ham a little bit when we're under the cosh. And for me, that puts Toney as the winner in this round. For me, I think you look at the stats, the key passes, his ability to link play. Yes, Armstrong's a better dribbler on the ball, but it's not to say that Toney isn't even varied in his position, and maybe not as successful. But you'd have to look at the stat. 1.1 key passes is better than what Armstrong's putting out. He's scoring more goals. He's better in the air. He doesn't get dispossessed as much. There are so many assets to Toney's game. And if you watch Toney and you watch Armstrong, and I have watched both of them in the highlights of the type of goals that they're scoring, Toney's awareness, not only to finish, but actually to set up the players around him, for me, is really, really impressive. And it's probably an ability that can translate better to the Premier League than Armstrong. And it's harsh on Armstrong because he has scored goals, he has got decent finishing, and I like his passing range. It's very unique for a striker. And we've got to remember, Mikel Antonio isn't even a natural centre forward, so we aren't adverse to going getting a player that has to be moulded in and around that number 9 role. But Ivan Toney is demonstrating faculties that Antonio has, probably a little bit more polished in terms of keeping the ball and the finishing as well. He's much more clinical. So for me, it's going to have to be Ivan Toney over Adam Armstrong in this side of the round. And listen, no surprises for me. Great player, really good player. And it's only March, so I'm sure he'll score more goals. But that is the winner for this side of the draw. The next side of the draw is Tammy Abraham versus Youssef En-Nesyri. Two players that have, again, played at the higher level than Toney and Armstrong. En-Nesyri, again, with Sevilla in the Europa League, so playing at a much higher level, and his stats are interesting enough. Abraham hasn't played much this season, so what I want to do is compare Abraham in 1920 to En-Nesyri in 2021 to make it a little bit fairer. There's more stats on both of them, so there's going to be a little bit more detail in terms of the specifics, but I will use exactly the same criteria. Let me know in the comment section, because what I'll do is I'll give you the power. If you can overrule me, right? You can overrule me. If you're in the comment section and you say, no, Armstrong needs to join West Ham over Toney, you can overrule me and I'll put him through to whoever the winner is of Tammy and En-Nesyri. But I've given you the details. I've given you the facts. Come back to me. Let me know what you think about both of them. And until next time, everybody, take